Hi there, I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazine, and today I've got a special treat for you, a brand new video that will change the way you think about painting and color. This video is called A Colorist's Guide to Painting, and it's by the great Camille Przewodek, who is rooted in the colorist tradition going back to Monet. I hope you enjoy it.
So now I'm going to start the painting. So when I put that first color down, that's the key to my whole painting. So everything in the painting is related to that first color. So what I say to students is just try to find a color that you're most confident of. So let's start. I'm going to start with the roof here. The roof is a dark and light, but I'm going to warm it up a little bit. And I know probably to most of you it doesn't look orange, and eventually I'm going to cool it down a little bit. But right now I'm going to organize lights and shadows. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here because I want it to go one adjacent color next to another. Okay, so later on, I'm going to make a difference right here. This top of this dormer here is a little bit lighter, but that's later on. I'm going to make that change. Okay, so the white in shadow is some kind of blue. So I'm going to mix a blue for this right here. And I'm looking at this in relationship to the roof. I'll put the windows in later. Okay, and then there's a shadow like right under here. And then there's some white in light there. That's your lightest light, the white. So right here I'm going to put it, could even be lighter. So right there. Okay, so now the roof is a dark. It's got a little bit of warm to it. So this is part of the dark part of the roof here. Okay, and then there's a little bit of dark right here. So any of this drawing I can correct later on. I'm just trying to get the first lay-ins as accurate as possible. And it's going to look pretty crazy when I'm done with this. But as I develop it, you'll see that it's going to come together. I think sometimes it's exciting when you're on a plein air event. I used to do this with Ken Oster. We would set up next to each other, and he was quite a showman. And I would start I'd be painting water, and I'd start my water with pinks and oranges, and then finally at the end I'd put blue on top of it, and inevitably somebody would come up to me and say, "Oh, I was so relieved when you put the blue on top of the water." But I started the water as more of a light plane, and I'll talk about that when I get to the sky here. Okay, so I'm just going to put the dark part of this, the shadow on the roof here. And I'm leaving white spaces between them, so if I have to make a color change, I'll be able to do that. So I'm thinking about how these relate. You know, this might have to be a little bit higher here, because these are all in perspective. You know, and I talked a little bit about that when I laid the drawing in. Okay, so the other thing is I usually paint outdoors. I do some painting indoors now, But, so I usually am not painting with light directly on my canvas. So this is a little bit different. I've got to compensate for that. It might look a little bit darker when I'm done, but hopefully I'll have compensated. Those are all things to think about. When you're out on location, you don't really want light on your canvas. Not only is it hard on your eyes, but it's hard to gauge the value of the values have a tendency of looking lighter. So now I'm going to go to the trees in the back, and I've made them a little bit higher than they are in the photo. Now back there, it's cooler. Like the trees up here are going to have more reds in them. Back there, I'm going to have a little bit. It might be a little bit too dark. But I'm going to look at the trees as shadow and light. Okay, and then the light part of it, the lights here are going to be much warmer and have more saturation than back there. So I might neutralize the color back there. You know, later on I can maybe make it a little bit warmer, but I'm thinking actually it could be a little bit lighter. Okay. Okay, and then maybe a little bit of light here. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the sky, and the sky is pretty light. You know, this is lighter. The grass in light is a little bit lighter than the sky, and this is a little bit darker than the sky, and it's not as orange. So I'm going to go to a pink in the sky. Later I will cover that with blue, the same value. But I'm going to just put that there. So this is probably very foreign to most of you from other workshops, but this is how I paint. One color note next to another color note until I get it covered. And I'm relating, I'm talking to myself as I'm painting. Is that warmer, darker, lighter, cooler? Is it, you know, so I'm asking myself those questions. I'm relating. What I talk about is when I'm painting, I'm juggling all my colors up in the air. And as I'm juggling, I'm thinking, oh, this is where my orange goes, this is where my blue goes, this is darker than that. And I'm comparing. And once I stopped comparing, all my colors have dropped. And I've got to pick them up again. So it's a very active way of painting. I'm not having conversations with people walking by. I'm really just focused. If somebody does come by and ask me what I'm doing, which is obvious, I'm basket weaving, I usually know. But, you know, when somebody comes by, I'll politely say, you know, you're more than welcome to observe, but I really can't talk right now because I'm in the middle of painting this, and it takes a lot of focus and a lot of concentration. So this is the cloud part. Okay. So now I'm going to go to it's a Crepe Myrtle. Yeah, it's a Crepe Myrtle. So the Crepe Myrtle has, it's a little bit oranger, a little bit yellower maybe than the roof, a little bit. So I'm going to, and like I say, I can change all these later on. I'm not, okay, so let's put this here. That's the part of the flowers. And then there's also some green and light here. And then there's the shadow part of the tree. And I'm still thinking about this, so maybe a little bit of red in that, but not as much as I'm going to put here. Because there's some distance. There's some distance between here and here and here. There's aerial perspective. So I'm being aware of that when I'm painting. And if you notice, I'm not really using a lot of mineral spirits. My paint is pretty thick. Okay, so now I'm going to mix a color for the shadow part of the building in the background. And like I say, I'm not sure what color that is. And when I put it down, it's too green, so I'm going to change it. I didn't like that color. I'm going to start with a blue, then I'm going to put a little bit of orange in that blue, just to neutralize it a bit. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, so I'm not putting in any windows yet. I can always do that later. Okay, so I just want to put that building in shadow. Then there's these bushes back there against the building. Okay, so now those bushes are pretty similar in value. They're darker than the building. So, and later on I'm going to put some green and bring these closer to the colors you actually see. But to start off with, I'm just putting them, I'm dividing them as light and shadow. And then there's some light on a few of those. Like over here, there's some light. Over here, there's some light. And over here, maybe I'll put this whole thing in shadow back here. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the building next to it here. Now that white in shadow is much lighter than this white in shadow, because there's a lot of reflected light reflecting into that, and it's also greener because a lot of that green is reflecting from the bushes and the grass into that shadow. So I'm going to go to a greener blue here. And then there's that building in the back. It's a little building. Actually, I'm not going to put that in. Like I say, I don't have to. I'm not a photographer. I don't have to put everything. I guess now you can even take that off if it's a photograph. Put it in Photoshop and just delete it. Okay, so now the light part of that building, this part is in light here. And then we've got some of the windows are in light and shadow. So I'm going to put a little bit of dark, like right here. That's that window in shadow. And then the windows in light. Now, what I do with windows a lot of times, they may look dark on location, but I'm going to paint them lighter because I'm trying to create the illusion of light. And that's when I talk about painting what I know, not necessarily what I see. So I was, years ago, I was doing a demo I was actually just painting along with a group of my students, and we were painting the side of a building, and it had all these windows. It was all in light and had all these windows on the side of the building with window panes. And all my students had every window pane. They counted them out, but they didn't recess the windows on the building. I didn't put any panes. I just put the windows in light, and then there was a little bit of a shadow at the top to put inlay into the building. But those details. The important detail was that those windows were actually in light. And so what I talk about a lot is there's a big organization we go from big general shapes. So in everything, in a model, on a landscape, you know, in still life, there's this underlying organization that's important. And it's not about all the details. It's not the frill on the buildings. It's like what are the important structural things? And then you can go in. So once you get those big notes, then you can go in and go into detail. But you've got to get those big notes stated as accurate as possible. Okay, so that's I think that might be a little bit too dark, because I'm looking at that here, and this building is actually lighter than, see, I'm looking at this in relationship to that. That's actually lighter. Okay, so now I'm going to go to maybe an ochre with a little bit of orange. Let's see, that might need to be a little bit lighter. Okay, so it's darker than the white in light. Okay, and then here's the Okay, so now I'm going to go to the tree next to it, and I've decided to put the tree to cover the point of that roof there. Okay, so this tree is closer, so I'm going to make it warmer. Okay, so that's a little bit too warm. And the same thing I'm doing here, I'm going to think light and shadow. Okay. So I'm going to put the shadow in, the light in. Yeah, sometimes when I'm painting, it's hard to talk. When I'm painting all day and I come home and I talk to my husband, I say the opposite of what I mean, and he just self-corrects. Because I'm in a different part of my brain right now. And this is really different. When I'm on location, the light's changing. Actually, I can take as long as I want to paint this, so that's pretty different than what it's like when I'm on location, because the light is constantly changing and moving. So I couldn't really take this kind of time. Okay, so that's the roof. Okay, goes here. And there's some tiles up there I'll put in later on. Okay, so now there's some white in shadow right here. And then it goes here. And then at the side of it is in shadow. So then I'm thinking, I'm going to put that window, probably the shadow of the window's right there, because it's recessed. And there's a shadow right here. Okay, so now I'm going to put the window in light, the window part in light. And then I'm going to go. Now see how that already looks like it's recessed? If I got into the window panes and all that, it wouldn't really make any difference. That's a detail that I can do later on, which I don't know if I'm going to do. The other thing is, whatever detail you put in, what I like to ask myself, is it going to add to the painting or detract from the painting? So if it detracts, I can leave it out. You know, I have permission, or I've given myself permission. Okay, so the window, the light's probably like that. And then, of course, that light part of the window's here. Now, see, that's a structural, that's important. It's not all the window panes, it's that, recessing those windows in the building. Okay, so then the light's here, light there. I think it goes up a little bit higher here. Okay. So now I'm going to go to the shadow on the windows. Is a shadow on the side of the building here. There's a shadow here. It's a little bit lighter. A little bit redder. See, so when I put the paint on the canvas, I can say, oh, that's too green or that's too red or whatever, and I can put it down here and I can add whatever color I need to add. And those are the kinds of, you know, conversations I'm having with myself. So then this is light here. And then this. Okay. Now, this here is warm, it's pretty warm. Compared to here, it's darker and it's warmer. So as I'm painting, I'm comparing everything. And it does get cooler over here, which eventually I'll change. Okay, so then we have that, the pole here, there's a shadow here, a white and shadow. Might feel a little bit lighter. Okay, so there's a shadow like right here. Then there's a shadow here, white and shadow. And then we've got a white and shadow here, and then the shadow here, and then there's some of that's in light. So this right here is a light. Okay, so now I'm going to the roof here. It looks a little bit cooler. It's got a little bit of warmth to it, but okay, so this is the light part of the roof. Okay, and then I don't have it in the photo, but I know that this is probably dark here. And it probably has some shadow here. Okay, so now the roof in shadow here goes up to there, and it goes this way. Now I'm thinking this might be too cool, you know, as I'm putting it on. Then there's some shadow from a tree over there. Okay. So I'm going to make that a little bit warmer, because it didn't quite look like it was in sun. Okay. So now that building in the back is in shadow, it's not quite as warm as, it's not quite as dark and as warm as that. But it does have some warmth to it. And it's different than this. And there's a window there that I can put in later on. Or I can put some trees there. Okay, so now I'm going to come in with these bushes. Here, there's a bush here. Okay, there's a bush like right over here. Okay, bush here. Now I'm going to come in with some shadow, light and shadow. And they're not, it's not that dark. That light and shadow isn't quite as dark, let's say, as that. But I just want to indicate it. Like right here. There's a little bit of shadow like right here. And maybe like right there. And then I'm going to go around the corner here. There's a bush that I'm going to put in right here. Maybe. And then it does have dark. It is dark, pretty dark, the shadow part, so maybe a little bit of warmth to it. Okay, so then there's some cooler bushes in the front to that. So they go from here, and they go around here and over here. Like I say, they're cooler than these bushes. So I'm going to use a cooler shadow. Okay, so I think that building ends about like right there. I'm thinking now I can scrape, because I think these bushes are way too high. So like I say, I can always correct. Because I thought those bushes back there were too big. Okay. I'm going to have to clean my palette pretty soon. Okay, so now these foreground bushes, I'm going to use some magenta. Okay, so I've got these right here. Okay, so and I can redesign these. I don't need to, I can put flowers in them. I can do anything I want to for these. That's part of the design process. Okay, so let's put some shadow and light. Okay, so. And then the grass around it is a little bit lighter, but it's still pretty red, so if it's something like that there. There's this path coming out here with a little bit of the grass in shadow here. And the path is lighter and cooler. a little bit lighter. See, I'm still looking at that to that. It's still too. Okay, then we've got the grass. I'm going to put those bushes back in the back, make them smaller. Okay, so we've got a little bit of light on them. Okay, so now I'm going to put there's some light here, and then there's that pathway back there in light. There's a walkway right there. And then there's this in light. This is the grass in light. Okay, so now make this a little bit longer. And then there's part of the pathway goes over this way. I'm actually not going to put that pathway in over there. Well, maybe I will. Let's see. It's a little bit different than what I did later on, but actually maybe I will. Okay, so the pathway comes over here, and it's also in light and shadow, and then it comes this way. So now this, the grass in the foreground has a lot of dappled light on it. Okay, and then there's some Okay, so now I'm going to put the light on the tree here, and let's see, I have to get this chimney in. It's a shadow. Is that cool? The chimney here. Oh, there's something to stop you from moving off the canvas here. Actually, that could be a little bit thinner. I just take enough so that I can come back in and... Okay, so that's going to be the chimney there. Okay, then I've got this roof here. Okay, so now I'm gonna just get some clean white here because I'm running into other colors. So I think I'll keep some of this on here because I'm adding and mixing and using some of the paint that I have on the... When I'm outdoors, I usually completely clean my palette because I'm so quick and I need to keep this cleaner, but when I'm in the studio, I'll keep some of this because I'm going to go into it and maybe make it lighter or darker or neutralize it depending on where I'm putting it. And then some of the green there. Okay, then I'm going to make this light here a little bit warmer than here. And as I go into the dappled light gets a little bit darker than that. And I'm going to put, this is part of that is in light, that pathway is in light. And I'm actually maybe going to put some light here as it goes across there. Okay, then this is in light and this is in light. And I've decided I'm going to have maybe some shadows coming over here. And then I'm going to put some light over here. Light coming in here. Then maybe I'll put some flowers over there, like some red flowers here, and then the red flowers in shadow. Okay, so that's my first lay-in. So the next part of this demonstration, I'm going to start modifying what I started out with. But I've covered everything. I've organized lights and shadows. I haven't put in too much detail. That's later on. I'll put in, like windows here and put some local color into my greens. Maybe, I might even redesign it in a few places. But this is the first lay-in. It looks very crude, which is what I want. There's white spaces between the colors, so I will fill those in and finish the painting on our next session. Hi, I'm Camille Przewodek and welcome to my workshop. In this workshop, we will be organizing our lights and our shadows, our warms and our cools, and painting the effect of light on objects. We'll be exaggerating the warmth of the sun on objects. This workshop is unique because, unlike most workshops, we start with one color, which is the key to the whole painting. And then we put adjacent colors next to that first color and relate every color to one another. A colorist to me is somebody in the tradition of Monet who is actually concerned and practices painting the light key of nature, the quality of light on objects and all the variables that affect that light. My approach to color is creating the illusion of light on objects. I have worked for 35 years to paint the different light keys of nature. And I'm also a plein air colorist. I usually work on location. Lately I've been doing paintings in the studio, but the only reason I can work from reference is that I have that 35 years experience painting on location. Well, I think this video inspires students to paint with the full range of pigments that is available to them, and also to actually capture that effect of light on objects, the effect of a sunny day. I would like to invite you to come along with me and explore how to paint the sunlight, how to exaggerate the effect of light on objects. This is a very unique approach to painting, and you're probably not going to hear this in other workshops. So I'd like to open you up to a new way of seeing and to exaggerate and use saturated color.
Well, that was a colorist guide to painting with Camille Przewodek, and you can learn more about the entire full-length video by visiting Streamline.Art. And we have a special discount for you today only. Just look for the discount code up in the comments section. Now, let's get right to our interview with Camille.
Hi, I'm Camille Przewodek, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my art career. I went to Wayne State University in the 70s, and I got a degree in fine art, and I learned how to throw paint. I didn't learn how to paint, because in that time, that was during the abstract expressionist period. So I painted for a while, and then I felt like I hit a wall, and I didn't know where to go with it. So I decided to stop painting, and I got into history and political science. And I stayed with that for about 6 years. I almost went to Berkeley to major in history. And then one day I was looking at an illustrator's annual, and I decided, wow, that's actually something I would love to do. So I decided to go back to school, get a degree in illustration, and eventually, because I was a legal secretary, that's how I was supporting myself. So I thought, I'm going to learn a trade, so I became an illustrator. Right before I was ready to graduate, I met my husband, Dale Axelrod, who had been studying with Henry Henche. So he turned me on to Henche. We went to Provincetown, and it completely changed my life. Up to that point, when I came back, I didn't want to do anything that I had done previously. I knew it would take me years to develop as a colorist, but I was totally inspired. So I developed my color and then eventually became an illustrator. So I was taking my portfolio around, and I was showing my pretty straight portfolio, and then I said to these art directors, well, look I've been doing these paintings. They're like, oh my God, we got to use you. And so very shortly into my career as an illustrator, I became a fine art illustrator, and I started doing huge national ads for Alfa Romeo, Target, etc. Because I was so unique, I was getting my paintings in the Illustrator's Annual, which is the thing that inspired me to become an illustrator. So eventually, the budgets weren't there anymore, and I decided one day that I was going to quit my job as an illustrator. I called my rep in New York, and I said, I don't want any more jobs. I told my husband, don't worry, I'm quitting my job, and I was the main earner. And I said, I know this is the right thing to do. So the first day on location, I went out, took my easel, I went on location, set up, and 1 hour into my painting, somebody in Petaluma came out to me. He's an attorney in Petaluma who has a Julia Morgan house. He says, oh, I love your work. How much would it cost for you to do a painting of my house? And I said, oh, okay, well, you can't art direct me because I just quit my job as an illustrator, but a 12 by 16 is $1,200. So we shook hands, and the first day on location, I made $1,200. So I came home and I said to my husband, oh, my new job, I made $1,200 on my first day at my new job. But what I tell students is at that point, I took my advertising budget from illustration, immediately put it into my fine art budget, started buying ads in the different magazines, and that's how I grew my career. And now I paint full-time, and I'm able to pass on what I got from Henry Henche. So the school system really wasn't for me. And what I equate, when I studied history and political science, it was pretty interesting because I was always a right brain kid and person. And I stopped drawing, and I started just reading in books, and I started spending a lot of time in my left brain. And I feel like I developed both sides, and that was, I couldn't have done illustration without that, because illustration, you actually solve problems. And I tell people this way of painting, it's not only just expressing yourself, but you have to have an analytical mind also. So as a kid, I could always draw, but you know, I didn't really get serious about art till I went to college in my early 20s. And you know, it was during the abstract expressionist period. You know, people were throwing paint. I was exploring, expressing, and but it just wasn't really my thing. So that's really how I. Oh, and my brother was an artist, so he was the one that actually introduced me to museums, and I saw him painting, and it was always something I was good at, but it wasn't a developed talent. Yeah, I could always draw, but you know, that's what I say to students. I think it's 10% talent, 90% development. And it's important to have good instruction. So when I say I went to college and I learned, you know, I got a degree in painting without learning how to paint, it was really irritating to me because I could have really been developing my skills at that point. So once I met Henry Henche and was introduced to all these very accomplished painters, I had to do catch-up. So then I started finding people like Henche taught me color, structure and form. So I started finding the masters that I could actually study with and I had to do a lot of catch-up because the structure, the instruction just wasn't there. About 10 years ago, I had been painting, you know, I was the kind of painter, I painted all the time, you know, all paint, 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 paint. And I reached a kind of a critical point in my life where I really started questioning, like, why do you paint? It wasn't just about laying down paint, which I think, you know, when you start, you need to do all those miles and miles of canvas. But I started thinking about, like, why do you really paint? I mean, I almost stopped painting. So it was like I went into therapy. It was kind of an internal struggle. And eventually I started painting the wetlands, and I thought, well, the wetlands, they're my water lilies. They're endangered, and you can do anything. You can abstract them. Who cares how you put a reed in? You can abstract them. So for years, I just started painting wetlands. I'd go down to Laguna and paint the Back Bay, and friends of mine would say, why are you painting the Back Bay? Nobody wants to buy that at the Laguna Plein Air Painters. But I said, you know, I needed to paint what I was inspired to paint. So now what I tell people say, oh, do you paint all the time? And I say, no, I don't necessarily paint all the time. I plan my paintings and I've got to be inspired. After the wetlands, I got into house and garden painting. So I started painting all the house and gardens in Petaluma. And so I plan what I'm going to paint, and I write about what I'm painting. And it's more coming from a deeper place than when I first started developing as a painter, as in this colorist tradition. I don't paint until I'm inspired. So it's like when I'm inspired by something, I mean, I painted this one painting. I was up in Oregon, and it was this house with all these red flowers over this fence, and it was like, whoa, I've got to paint that. If I don't paint that now, I'll never get it again. So I basically, you know, parked my car, jumped out, set up my easel and painted, and I got a really great painting out of it. So those are the happy moments. I mean, there are times when I try to capture what I see and I don't get it, you know, so it's like, you know, I'm not depressed, but it's like, oh, I didn't get it. But when you do get it, what you saw in your mind's eye, it's really exciting. I'm so drawn to color because that's what inspires me. That's what inspires me about a scene, is that, you know, how do I capture that illusion of light on objects? Right now, I'm getting very excited. I'm doing a workshop in Southern California, the figures on the beach. So I'm going to be doing a whole series of figures on the beach. So I'm going to be shooting some reference down there, and I'm very excited about that. So figure, I mean, I'm known for my landscape, but I do a lot of figure work also. And figure in the landscape, a figure in the sunlight. I think teaching inspires me, just to see my students grow. And, I'll go to a museum, or, I'll read I'll look at a book, or I have also, I collect paintings, pictures of paintings that inspire me. And that's how I share that with students. I can teach you how to paint, but in order for you to find your own vision, you don't want to paint like me, you want to paint like you paint. Maybe start collecting, go into magazines and look at what stops you in your tracks. That's kind of a little clue to who you are as a painter. And I have a lot of advanced students that they don't look like me. People know they studied with me, but they've developed their own unique vision. And that's very important. Once you learn how to paint, then the hardest part is developing your own vision. Like, I'm a plein air colorist, very distinct. I'm very different than other plein air painters. And that's what separates me, and that's what I'm passionate about. Just open your mind to a new way of seeing, and also enjoy the process. Don't get hung up on the outcome. Just enjoy the process of learning. That's what I find. I find students get frustrated because they maybe can't do it right away. But if you just keep at it, like I have students that come to my classes every week, and then there might be a student that'll drop out for maybe 3 months, and then they'll come back and they'll say to these students that have been with me, "Wow, you've grown so much." So sometimes I don't think you actually see your own growth. But just stick with it, and eventually your work will get better and better.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the interview with Camille Przewodek. She was one of the first teachers I had, and she had a massive impact on my ability to see color and to paint. And she was even encouraging me at that time when I was considering starting Plein Air magazine. She's very important to me, and I think you'll find she's important to you. Her new video is called A Colorist's Guide to Painting, and you can find the full-length video at Streamline.Art. And you can find the discount code for today only up in the comments section. Thank you for watching. I'm Eric Rhodes.
Hi, I'm Camille Przewodek, and welcome to my workshop. In this workshop, we will be organizing our lights and our shadows, our warms and our cools, and painting the effect of light on objects. We'll be exaggerating the warmth of the sun on objects. This workshop is unique because, unlike most workshops, we start with one color, which is the key to the whole painting. And then we put adjacent colors next to that first color and relate every color to one another. A colorist to me is somebody in the tradition of Monet who is actually concerned and practices painting the light key of nature, the quality of light on objects and all the variables that affect that light. My approach to color is creating the illusion of light on objects. I have worked for 35 years to paint the different light keys of nature. And I'm also a plein air colorist. I usually work on location. Lately I've been doing paintings in the studio, but the only reason I can work from reference is that I have that 35 years experience painting on location. Well, I think this video will inspire students to paint with the full range of pigments that is available to them, and also to actually capture that effect of light on objects, the effect of a sunny day. I would like to invite you to come along with me and explore how to paint the sunlight, how to exaggerate the effect of light on objects. This is a very unique approach to painting, and you're probably not going to hear this in other workshops. So I'd like to open you up to a new way of seeing and to exaggerate and use saturated color